Testing, testing. Is this thing on? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. This is Dark Channel taking over Laid Back Luke's EDM studio. We're going to get real techno in this live stream. Hi, everyone in the chat. Good to see you here, although you see me posting as Laid Back Luke. This is not Laid Back Luke. This is Dark Channel. So the reason I'm here is because there's a new EP coming. It's a tribute EP, a tribute to the big techno masters that were of great influence for me back in the end of the 90s. This new EP has that feeling, and when I'm saying the end of the 90s, it doesn't mean any Eurodance, no Eurodance. It doesn't mean tech trance. It doesn't mean the new techno you hear nowadays. It is authentic end of the 90s techno. And it's interesting because I recently bumped into a big techno name whom I will keep anonymous right now, but it's one of the biggest techno names that came up with me, and I was talking to him about how the techno sounds nowadays. And everyone thinks that, referencing to the end of the 90s with like Eurodance and all of these trance type of sounds is how it sounded back then. It was not. Back in the day, we were not about that. And so what I'm trying to do with Dark Channel is to not hop on a trend, but try and bring you the authentic 90s feel from back in the day. So what we're first going to do is we're going to listen to the track I'm talking about today. The track is called Verheij, the original Verheij. Maybe see if I can have some experts in the chat. Verheij, the tribute. This track is a tribute to someone called Verheij from back in the 90s. See if I can... okay, Terex is onto something here in the chat. I love all those 90s names, Terex. I am Dark Channel and I kidnapped Laid Back Luke's studio. He is out making some EDM or performing at some festival with a lot of CO2 and pyro. But I'm Dark Channel and I'm here to talk to you about techno. Ooh, Graveyard Terex is on the money. So this track, Verheij, is a tribute to Jeroen Verheij's Secret Cinema moniker, and especially his Timeless Attitude track. And the project we're going to dive into, let me have a look. Look, we're going to dive into Ableton, everyone. This is going to be a producer session. We're going to dive into Ableton soon. This is going to be the Gung Ho edit of Verheij, of Dark Channel's track Verheij. And the Gung Ho edit, obviously another wink out to the big master, Jeroen Verheij. Shout out. I've played his track, Secret Cinema Gung Ho, forever in my sets. And so I figured with this EP as well to give tribute to the masters, and hopefully the new breed, the new school will look up these masters and check out the original tracks. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, because I'm getting too many EDM vibes in this Laid Back Luke studio here, we're going to listen to some techno. And we're going to listen to the track. I'm going to skip through a couple of sections in this track. See if, and especially Terex, see if you can tell why this track is called Verheij and why it's the Gung Ho edit. So let's have a listen. All right, let's break this down for a moment because I do really want to emphasize the non-euphoric feel here. 90s techno was all about drum patterns, industrialism. All the euphoric stuff was more in like the trance corner. So I'm taking it back to that. Again, this is a tribute to Jeroen Verheij, and I've listened to his track Secret Cinema Timeless Attitude, and this one is mixed with Gung Ho as well. And the great thing is that you will get an opportunity as well to get your hands on this. So there's links in the chat where you can download all of these stems, and actually I want you to remix this track as well. Let's dive in and break this down a little bit. So first of all, notice the tempo. The tempo is 134 BPM. This is the BPM the Dark Channel plays at. Nothing faster, nothing slower. This was the tempo for me on vinyl, and it still is the tempo. So 134 is really important to me. And now let's break down the chords. The chords, because Timeless Attitude by Jeroen Verheij had a special type of feel to it. And you can't really get that out of a serum. I mean, you can try, and if you're one of those producers that makes sounds from scratch, good for you. But the synth I use for this one is the UV Workstation. And the beauty about the UV Workstation is that it mimics the chord swell synth that Secret Cinema used back in the day. So this is kind of like a copy. I couldn't find the exact sound though, so it's the stab chord setting. And I altered the cutoff and the filter resonance a little bit to have that sound as close as I could to Timeless Attitude. So this is what it sounds like. And you see over here is my chain. I guess I tried a little alter plugin, alter boy, but that didn't work. So we're not using that. I love using the SSL EQ. Laidback Luke got me onto this. As much as I hate his music, I like using this EQ as well. But apparently, it's not doing much here. Oh yeah, look, the filter in, and it cuts off at up to let me see, the 165 hertz. That's the only thing it does. Got a little bit of a transient designer here, giving it less attack and more sustain on the actual chords, because the UV, as much as I love it, is a little bit limited in terms of editing. Some Fab Filter Saturn 2 saturation here on the mids to give it a little bit more crunch. Shout out to Isotopy for the Nectar plugin. What's amazing about the Nectar plugin is the little harmony engine they have, or add-on. It instantly adds an instance of your sound to the left and to the right, and it detunes it. And it gives you a really wide stereo image within minutes. So check it out if you don't know that. Got a bit more saturation here with the Black Box by Analog Design or by Brainworks. Shout out Plugin Alliance. Track spacer. I love using the track spacer. So this is just to cut out the kick drum from the sound, and we'll talk about the kick drum next actually, because it's really important. Some EQs, wow, I even used the drip. Now this is probably what Laidback Luke slipped into my plugin folder, because this is how EDM or trap can you get, right? With the drip plugin, not very techno, but using it. And so it's quite the elaborate look at this. All of the plugins on this one sound. But it sounds really fine to me right now. So let's talk about the kick, because the kick is actually more of like a, dare I say it, a trancey type of kick. So let's solo it out. Maybe you can hear why. It has that little blip out in the attack where trance records back in the days used to use this type of kick a lot. So here you can see where I got it from. Sennheiser, shout out. And I didn't even cut it. It's like this whole thing, and I just took the one kick. And quite the processing on there as well. A little bit more in the low mids, some saturation. And then it was really harsh in the high end, so a little bit of a auto filter on there, Ableton auto filter. And this is for the various sections of the track where I needed to cut out or become a little less in the high ends. And to top it off, to tame the peaks, I used the classic limiter, the classic clipper, just to make sure that really that harsh little attack was tamed a little bit throughout the track. Okay, let me have a look at the chat for a moment. Oh yeah, I see a lot of EDM people in the chat. Yeah, no shout out to Laid Back Luke fans here though. This is Dark Channel. Dark Channel hates EDM. No requests either. So if whenever you hear Dark Channel perform, there's no requests and no top 40 records. I love all Tarek's comments. Shout out Tarek's. Yeah, the Party Animal kick drum. It's a classic, right? And Cash Masters with the latest in the chat. Is there a deadline for remixing this track? Let me look at the people from Mixmash, and maybe the Mixmash people can answer this in the chat. See, we finally have a Dark Channel fan right here instead of a Laid Back Luke fan. Shout out Rias Jones. All the other Laid Back Luke people can keep on watching, but there will be no EDM played here today. I'm sorry. Okay, as we continue in this project, let's have a look at this synth sound called Bees. I used the Anna plugin right here. Shout out to Sonic Academy. I enjoy using the Anna synth a lot, and it's called Bees because in Gung Ho there's a little section with synths that sound like bees, and I wanted to make a tribute in this remix to that and have something similar. So this is that sound. And it opens throughout as well on the envelopes and the effects, and a little bit in the LFO as well. Let me see if we can look at a section there. Automation. It's quite subtle here. Let's listen to the effects automation. It warms my Dark Channel heart that it has a little bit of jitter going on, and I think that's also due to the little altar boy on here in the -12 format. A little bit of drive as well. We got the SSL again, the Pro Q3. What does it do? So take note, this is a trick I saw in one of Laid Back Luke's, I hate that name, Laid Back Luke's vlogs. If you press the little A button in the EQ, the volume, the overall volume will stay the same. So no matter what you tweak and no matter what you add, it'll always give you a realistic listen as to what you are doing with the sound. So I utilize that here, give it a bit of extra low mid, a little bit of a high end out in the 9,000 hertz region. Another Fab Filter Satin, because I do like that. A little bit of saturation in the mids. Track spacer to cut out the kick again. And some automation on the filter here. Let me see where it's at. So this is in the beginning. It's just quite subtle overall. This evolves in the track without it being too much in your face, unlike most EDM. And good news, there is no sausage fattener in this project. How about that? Shout out to the people who are in the dark side with me right now. Analog gear. No analog gear, unfortunately, because of the majority of traveling and DJing all over the world. I don't want to miss my gear around here. So I would actually love and enjoy some outboard gear, actually. Okay, let's have a listen to the sub, because the sub is quite brutal in here. Again, I'm using the Anna synth, and the preset is called BitROS. Let's have a listen what it does, because when you hear the track, it's right under the kick drum, huh? This one. Yeah, and I've played this track out at Perukaville in Germany, and that hits for sure. So just to make sure that I cut out all of the high-end frequencies here using a filter, and then just emphasizing the various frequencies and harmonies it's in. And let's see how low this one goes. Look at that. 31.6 hertz. That is really in the feels and not even in the ears. This type of bass you can really feel at a festival setup. Just a little bit more in the low and low mid sections. And look, utilizing this trick again, figured it could use a little bit more in here, and then the track spacer to cut out the kick, so it really slots in with the kick drum. Let's have a look at that. Let's have a listen. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Let's have a look at how the chat is going. Interesting discussion going on about explaining who Dark Channel is and where Laidback Luke is, and the talking about techno and whatnot. Interesting. Silkmaster, to answer your question, yes, I've done an acid techno set at Creamfields, UK. How about that? Love a bit of acid, absolutely. And the question is, if Confusion from New Order from the Blade movie, is that acid techno? Well, technically, everything where you hear a 303 bass line going off into the resonance, this could be acid. So acid techno, I don't know, because Laidback Luke plays it in his EDM sets as well. So that's a bit of a stain, I guess. But anything that utilizes a TB303, a Roland TB303 sound, the acid sound, could qualify as acid. Drift with a really funny joke. I like it. I love the puns. Laidback Luke is absolutely bright channel. How about that? All right, back to the project. We're going to have just to listen to some of the string sections here, because I'm wondering if you know this oldie but goldie Native Instruments Absinthe 5 is really amazing for any type of pad work or weird background vibes. So over here in this track, I've used it in this type of manner. Kind of like a dark ghost string. And in the UV workstation, this is the general user interface, which I love, which is so quirky. There's a really nice natural sounding string in there as well. It's these type of strings you would hear in like old school house and whatnot. I also want to talk about the techno ride, and especially in the late 90s, you would hear this a lot. An act back in the day that would use this a lot is the Advent, and whenever this ride would come in, it would be a highlight of the track. Now, the name for this ride comes out of the Roland TR-909 drum computer, and it's this specific ride you would need in your techno track. So it sounds like this. And it's just a very specific type of ride, which you can't use any other drum kit. That's like trying to replace a 909 hi-hat with another hi-hat and then trying to call it house. It's that type of signature that's in the late 90s techno. So let's have a listen. While we're in this section, let's talk about this dark channel. Hey, and I like it that if you grab the samples from the chat, all of the stems from the chat, you will get this little hey as well that I've been using in all of my tracks, which I just enjoy because it doesn't sound EDM to me, and it gives it still type sort of a it's a old school hip hop type of wink, which we liked using back in the day as well in techno. Hey. This one. Hey. 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 Yep. Hey. And I gotta talk to you about this for a moment because it's a tribute, right? It's a tribute to Jeroen Verheij. I didn't send this EP to him at all because I'm sure he'll be coming for me. He'll be like, "Oh, you've remade my track, and now you used Gung." Not that he's a bad guy. He's full of love, but he is, and I love that, a techno purist. And how can I make something as a tribute like this more like a dark channel type of sounding thing? So that's why I use the hey in here as well. And all throughout the tracks, you'll hear a little bit of quirks and a little bit of added things where it's like, oh, that's definitely not Secret Cinema, and that's definitely Dark Channel. And that's where I'm getting at here with using these type of samples and just inserting the Dark Channel identity in this tribute. Okay, Robske. To find full sets of Dark Channel, you can just go on YouTube, and there are a couple. For instance, shout out to Tronic Records, Christian Smith. I did a Tronic techno stream, about 1.5 to 2 years ago. That's a full Dark Channel set, 134 BPM for the win. And so let's dive back into Ableton and all of the rest. This specific little clap FX clap here is definitely a reference to the original Gung Ho. That. What's also a reference to the original Gung Ho is the swing that I'm using in this track. So it's very specific. It's a 1/16th T, and the quantize is on a 55%. This makes that little B sound and all of the percussion sound so swingy. And this is an integral part of the whole groove and feel of this track. And let me see. Then we are, well, I do need to give a little bit of a shout out to Tom Stefan, whom I worked on a project with. No, it wasn't me. It was Laid Back Luke. Laid Back Luke worked on a project with Tom Stefan for, what was it, 15 years ago. And this wind, so obviously I got this from Laid Back Luke, is something Laid Back Luke uses in a ton of his tracks. So... All right, so all of this is from the new EP, a tribute EP coming. The tracks on there are Verheij, Garnier, Mills, who knows this tribute, Beltram. And there's going to be a couple of remixes that I've done as well. So the Gung Ho tribute remix, but there's also another remix, which is called the Paperclip People remix. So the real 90s techno lovers, they would know all of these references. So interesting question by Dre here. Do you think alter egos for DJs who want to experiment with other sounds is a good thing for the DJ and industry? Or would you rather a DJ producer be able to explore and play whatever genre they want? Actually, the latter. But what I love about making music as Dark Channel is that I am completely free to do what I want without the weight of the world weighing on my shoulders. And so whatever I do here, and Terex, I really appreciate your feedback as well. Too much trance, like breaks with a lot of build-up. You know, that is going on right now a lot in techno as well. Obviously, it works for the floor. Obviously, I would also love to make tracks like Robert Hood, which are just like 5-minute subtle loops and whatnot. But this Dark Channel is something that I love doing, just stepping out of my... it's not a comfort zone. It's more of like the EDM zone. Stepping out of the EDM zone, going back to 19-year-old me and just vibing. So that's where I'm at with this. And so as a bonus, and shout out everyone that's here, that's tuned in. As a bonus, let's just have a look at the mastering of this, because it's all on my pre-master here. And this is an older, I hate to say it, Laid Back Luke mastering chain. And let's have a look at that, because if anyone is interested in mastering themselves, let's see what happened here. So all of the channels go into the pre-master channel. On the pre-master channel, there's a -9 or -6. I usually start out with a gain reduction of -6 and -9. What I then do is use the classic clipper to clip all the peaks about 2 decibels. Let's see where I'm at. Let's have a busy part. Yeah, so about a -2 dB gain reduction on the clips here, which makes it easier for the rest of the plugins to handle the signal, right? Next up is a is the SSL compressor, which these are the older laid-back Luke settings. So if you're interested, have a look. I am looking at a -4 dB gain reduction here. Which I'll then make up with the makeup gain around here. So 3.5 dB. I love the linear phase multi-band plugin by Waves as well. It just needs to tickle the signal. A shout out to Mixbus TV. I'm a fan. I love his mastering tutorials, and it's the Electro preset. Some tape as well, the Kramer tape, for a bit of less digital sounding output. Now what this little section does here is work my stereo image. So it's the FabFilter Pro C compressor. Giving this type of gain reduction on the sides though, on the side signal. Let me grab the black box here. So Brainworks black box on the mid side setting, and specifically to just give the sides a little bit of a crunch here. So a little bit extra going on the sides through this one. Some EQ to clean it up, and this is on oversampling to not have any phase. And over here I am cleaning it up on specifically on the sides as well, you know, because of this thing over here, bringing everything forward on the sides and then just lessening the harmonic frequencies on the side signals. FabFilters Pro MB, just to squeeze out a little bit more bass here. Let's see what kind of reduction it has. So just a subtle -2 dB kind of like reduction going on in between the 50 hertz and say 200 hertz, and then bumping it up a 2.5 dB. How about that? FabFilter Saturn, just to add that extra type of high end and high mid type of saturation. Let me get that from the other screen, because there's quite elaborate things going on. EQing the sides here for extra stereo width. And this is incredibly enough in the 200 hertz range, a little bit of warmth added. And mind you, we're on the little A setting again on the Pro Q3. And all of this is really just by ear. After such processing, like what does the signal need? And in the end, so the same with the SSL EQ as well. This time around, let me grab that. This time around, it does do a bunch of things. What I love about the SSL EQ is that if you're listening to the track and you figure, oh, I just need a little bit less of the high mids, or I just need a little less of the high. Whenever you turn this knob, it always, most of the times, it always hits just right. It's just because throughout the musical history, in the majority of the songs, people have been using the SSL EQ, and whenever you want a certain type of area tweaked, SSL hits it. So if you don't have it, definitely give that a shot. Ozone 9, and this doesn't get spoken too much about, but I actually like using the Master Assistant. And this is a good start for, or, you know, in this case, almost like an ending to really try and get it as close as to whatever reference track you're using. And then at the ending, an extra 2 dB on an L2 with a true peak limiting, oversampling times 2, dithers 16 dB, and this is really important. Okay, let me just go back to the chat for a moment. So, Laidback Luke often gets asked, so if you are aiming for, say, and I will check what the end signal is here. If you're aiming for -7 LUFS, won't you get in trouble with platforms like Spotify, which is a -14 LUFS? And the answer is not really, because if, say, I want my track to be sounding good at -7 LUFS, and they reduce it, they give you a loudness penalty, all the dynamics that were in the track will still be the same. And so as long as you put this minus 0.3 decibel on your end limiter, which prevents the conversion from wave to MP3 from clipping, you are absolutely fine. So there will be some sort of penalty because the -7 needs to sound like -14, but at least your track is still sounding the way you want. So give that a thought, and go ahead and reference with, say, if you bounce out a track at -14, give it less dynamics or less compression, and go back and forth and see where you're sitting with this. 2 crucial plugins for me: the Ulean loudness meter, which is a free plugin, which is awesome. So here you can have the readout of the LUFS. Let's play the track again. So you see on the short term, it's hitting a -7 LUFS. That's where I want to be. And to just be safe, I love using the Voxengo Span spectrum analyzer as well. And this is the thing with this. I have it on a mid-side setting, so all of the sides, you can see the stereo image. So green is mono, yellow is stereo, or the green is mids and the yellow is the sides. And this way you can see if your track doesn't have any phase issues and is indeed like more mono in the low end. And that is the breakdown of Dark Channel Verheij, the Gung Ho edit. Let me look at the chat one more time, because it's going off in the chat. I really appreciate that, actually. Wow, someone took it next level with Laidback Luke, Twisted House, and Dark Channel, Twisted Techno. Well, Dark Channel is absolutely twisted. It's a Twisted Techno. I like the joke. It's awesome. I love it. DJ Spare Official, although I have a ton of respect for trance music, at the end of the 90s, trance and techno were completely polar opposite. So there is not much trance in my roots, but I have a lot of trance friends who are amazing producers. And this type of techno doesn't mesh too well with original trance. Yeah, so Oskinson, this is exactly what I mean with, it's possible that 90 songs are coming back. What Calvin Harris and Ellie Goulding have put out, I think it's a bold move. I heard Laidback Luke is playing it. I heard Laidback Luke is actually working on 90 songs like that. But 90 songs like that and 90s techno like this is a totally different story. So you see a lot of techno people reaching out to a 90s sound as well. They are reaching out to a Euro dance type of sound, which is completely different than from the techno from Jeff Mills, Dave Clark, The Advent, Surgeon. This had nothing to do with Eurodance. So Michael, the SSL EQ, you know what? Since we're here in the chat and we have a little bit more time, I will absolutely, it will be my pleasure to explain that to you. So the SSL EQ, what you need to know here, this is basically, let me pull up pull up an Ableton EQ so you can see. So high frequencies, this knob, when you open that in an Ableton EQ, it would do this. So if I turn this into a plus, it would do this. The high mid frequencies, if I would turn this knob, it would give me a little bell curve, and it would do this. The low mids frequencies out here. So you see, it goes in the shape of where the frequencies are, right? Low frequencies, low mid, mid high, and high frequencies. Now these other buttons just have to do with the bell shape. So this is very narrow, and this is a wide shape, similar to here. Very narrow, very wide. Oh, wow. And I'm explaining this so elaborately, and we're not on the Ableton screen. Here we go. Okay, let me do this again, but a bit faster. Sorry about that. Okay, SSL again. So it's very similar to an Ableton EQ, actually. So for instance, when I turn this knob, the high frequency knob, HF, it'll do this if it were an Ableton EQ, right? The high mid frequencies, it would give us a bell shape like this, and it would give it more signal over here. Low mids right here. And so what I was just saying with the width, this will give you a lot of resonance, and this will give you less resonance, which means it'll give you a wide bell shape or very narrow bell shape, similarly as you would do it over here, narrow and wide. So that's what those knobs do. Except over here for the high frequencies, that's where you can choose where it starts to, what the starting point is of where you want your curve to take place. So for instance, 8 kilohertz on the basic setting, this would be here in the Ableton EQ. So 1.5 and the Ableton EQ, you would start over here. So it's different, but it's the same actually. EQ is an EQ. All right, I'm gonna start rounding off here. Laid back Shinobi, no, nothing laid back here. This is Dark Channel. I've kicked Laid Back Luke out of his studio. He is out probably playing some pool party with a lot of pyro and CO2. This is Dark Channel, who preferably plays in a cave. And Churchless Society, about the SSL EQ, I've heard the drama with Waves. I'm completely with everyone, and I am probably going to be scrambling soon to see if there's another alternative for me. Maybe Plug-in Alliance, right? So I would like everyone to thank everyone for plugging in, chatting, tuning in, and make sure you grab those stems from the chat. And I am very curious to see what type of remixes you would make. Hopefully not EDM. Well, if you want to do EDM, feel free. Hopefully not euphoric techno, but if you want to do that, go ahead. And so thank you, everyone. I will be shutting off, so make sure to keep an eye out on the EP. This got released today, the Dark Channel Tribute EP. And hopefully I'll play a techno set for you soon. And so no L's up here, and not even peace, but we're out. Bye-bye.